Welcome, one and all, throughout time and space, for this episode of Weebs on the Weekends, the podcast where we break down the anime news highlights of the week and give a retrospective look on an anime that premiered 10 years ago. Today's episode will cover the 5th week of January 2021, where we'll give the anime news highlights, and we would also give our thoughts on whether to resurrect or rebury the 2011 anime franchise Brave 10. My name is Sam Martinez. I'm a part-time weeb, full-time automail mechanic, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Jay Johnson, part-time weeb, full-time English language sensei. Now, Jay, before we start talking about our weeks and stuff, I just want to clear the air and correct myself from last week. I was under the impression that the Crunchyroll Awards would be given us the results on the 25th, when in fact you had told me that that was when the voting ends. And if you would please remind me on when the actual results for the Crunchyroll Awards are to be given to the public.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, so the award ceremony is actually on the 9th of February of this year. And again, like the whole process of voting that the public does is usually lasts about a month. So we reported it the second week of January. So the public usually has like 2 to 3 weeks to put in their votes. And then for the whole event to be arranged afterward to give the winners a heads up to see if they want to arrive or, show up in person. It's not really clear yet if they're going to do a in-person or a virtual ceremony, but for right now, it's still scheduled for February the 9th.
Okay, that's not going to be too bad. I don't. That would actually be kind of cool to go to an awards ceremony like that. Do you think that they're going to be all dressed up like they would have to do for the Emmys or something like that, or is everybody just going to go in their weeb attire, like their anime T-shirt with their cat ears and the animatronic tails?
Generally, like this is the 6th annual Crunchyroll Awards, and from when they televised it for the 4th, before everything that was going on with COVID and the quarantine, that it was pretty much a semi-formal affair. It wasn't the Oscars with your suit and tie and casual or fancy $50,000 dress, but it was more just, we're all friends here in this room talking about the things that we love. So it was very casual, but at least semi-casual. So nothing too anime
Uh,
girl tales, uwu, or a gal shirts, but at least something nice to show up one person with.
so you could wear your tuxedo shirt with some good slacks and some good shoes.
Potentially, yes.
Well, like I said, just to give a little bit of a recap, I guess, like about the week. Man, dude, it's been freaking crazy with the cold weather that's been going on over here stateside. Like, in the states, the East Coast, we've just been in this. I don't think it's a blizzard, but it's like this huge cold wave where we're getting snow in places that normally don't get snow, and it's cold in places that's usually boiling hot. It's been crazy. But you told me a little bit about how where you're at, the days are starting to become normal again. So normal in terms of what daylight that you'll see. I guess, like, are you starting to get warmer weather, or are your is your temperature still in the negatives?
Yeah, it's funny that when the days get longer, the weather doesn't actually match your expected sunlight proportion to heat, because that's not how, the world or the universe works. Because, you're so tilted so far north in Mongolia, you're up there north towards the Arctic, that during the height of winter, you can have 16 to 17 hours of darkness. And, if you live on the poles, you can get like basically a whole 23 hours of darkness. If you're like, I know some people at research stations in the Arctic and Antarctic that have like 23-hour nights sometimes. But yeah, with Mongolia, we start to return to normal, quote, quote, normal hours of, your basic 8 hours of nighttime in January. And then when you get into the summer months, you have like the opposite. So you get like 17 hours of sunlight. So wintertime, the heaviest nighttime is like November, December, and it starts lighting up now that it's getting into the February or your Chinese New Year. So it's kind of perfect timing for that.
Okay, so then I'm trying to think, because you don't normally get the issue that some of the people in Alaska would get, whereas they would get so much sunlight that they have to have shut-in blinds. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, I mean, I'm such a light sleeper that I do have blackout curtains because, like, when you have 17 hours of daylight, it is like, we'll get light around like 5 a.m. technically, and then it won't get dark until like 10 p.m. So those are prime sleeping hours. So if you like to go to bed around 9 p.m. like I do, then you're definitely want some blackout curtains.
Oh no, no, definitely. So I guess like you could say you can have your own version of the insomnia movie where you're at. I think who was supposed to be in that? I think that was Al Pacino.
It was Al
But
Pacino, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was. And I guess like one other question that I have for you, it's sort of related because like I'm about to travel recently, and I just learned that you can have a battery pack, like a charging battery pack with you in the carry-on luggage, and you can't do it while with a check-in. And it just made me think like when you're out there in the streets of Mongolia with it being as cold, do you find people using the battery packs more, or uh, do they even use battery packs for their cell phones a lot over there?
Yeah, because I mean, given the culture is always so like once you leave your house, you're not really coming back until the very end of the day, and charge
Oh,
ports
okay.
are very rarely like in convenient places. So
Hmm.
battery packs or those portable chargers are very much a common accessory nowadays. I mean, I have basically one in my home and then one at work because I'm constantly on my phone communicating with people because being your profession or being in a certain profession, you can be in constant communication or taking phone calls any time during the day. So the cold does affect it somewhat and does get into like the warning temperatures that the manufacturers put onto chargers that you're supposed to keep it away from. So you have to keep it inside your jacket pocket, not anywhere exposed to the cold temperatures. So there is some danger to it, but most people I know carry around portable chargers.
Oh, okay. So like I guess like you can probably like have them in your pocket with like the hand warmers to make sure that like it doesn't overheat or freeze up on you, I suppose. Like while you're
Exactly.
out and about. And with that, we can transition into our first news story, which happens to deal with cold places. So essentially, there was a anime. There was a film festival that's called Francis Caesar Awards, and the anime movie Summit of the Gods had won the award for best animation, best animated feature in that category. And it was just very interesting to me because I was first exposed to this movie on Netflix. I've been wanting to watch it, but this movie is based off of a manga for the same name by the artist Baku Makura, who is known for writing action stories and has very very big is very influenced by his outdoor interest, which is fishing as well as mountain climbing. And essentially the uh, synopsis of this story is that you follow this photographer who discovers a link to somebody that went missing on Mount Everest and that was never seen again. And so it's essentially you're following this photographer and trying to unravel a mystery on what really happened to this climber, if this climber ever came back, things of that nature. And it's supposed to like this manga was supposed to have a very huge acclaim to it. Jay, are you familiar with this piece or with the France Caesar Awards?
A little bit that again, we always talk about how France is like one of the biggest proponents of Japanese culture in the world, kind of before the United States. So, like, Japan has a very intimate relationship with their award ceremonies with recognizing Japanese films. So it's not surprising that this came up. And this is like something like that's been on my radar, not for a while, but Netflix doesn't really do the greatest job promoting the things that they bring onto their service. But this dropped back in November of last year and been meaning to watch it. But again, it's November. The winter season is one of those seasons that you try to catch up on everything that was going on during the year. So it's just something that just slipped under my radar. And the trailer for it really does speak to a couple of things that really caught my eye. It's like it's not, the distinction we make between something that is animated and something that is anime. And this is definitely one of those animated films where it does have this modern aesthetic that's something similar to Archer, which has been going on for a while, probably a decade
Oh yeah.
now, in the Western, like just Western animation. It's kind of this smooth, kind of circular or curved character designs and sharp action and attention to detail to the setting and tonal structure of a piece. So I'm really glad that the story came up because this is based off of a manga and somewhat of a novel series
Mhm.
from like the 60s or 70s that hasn't been really given its proper due. And I really like this, and I'm glad you brought it up in the news because I wanted to talk about a little bit about like how this does feel in the same vibe of Usagi Drop. We did an episode of about basically a father and daughter dynamic, and I think that's what really sells the story of Some of the Gods. It's just a hiker and his Sherpa, essentially, scaling Mount Everest, and seeing this intimate betrayal between two people, kind of man versus nature, and it's not really something that's seen in the anime scene this much. So with an animated feature like this, I'm glad it's getting the recognition that it is.
Almost definitely. We've seen this type of stuff in film before where we would have like a duo or a group of people try to climb different heights. Like there's even been documentaries on stuff like free solo. And so like these type of extreme sports, seeing them portrayed on the screen, there's definitely a group or a population that would go and pay money to go and see this. So, like you said, it's very good or very interesting that the anime community was able to make such a big splash in manga form at first, and then to see the same as a animated film. And talking about animated films, oh my goodness, they had finally gave us a date on when Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is going to be open in US and Canada. And it is going to be on March 18th in about 1,500 theaters that have IMAX capabilities, and it would be available in sub and an English dub. And tickets will go on sale on February 25th. I am so hype, and I'm a little jelly, Jay, because I'm thinking that Jujutsu Kaisen already had its tour over there by you, didn't it?
Yeah, that's very interesting because it got pulled from the release or broadcasting here in Mongolia, which was very
Really?
upsetting to me. Yeah, because like it was broadcasted basically, or it was marketed for 2 weeks straight, and this was the same time around. I forgot was so like the original premiere was in Japan for December 24th, I believe. It was that Christmas, holiday release.
Mm.
But I think what was out the same time, I can't actually remember because there's so much overlap and like delay to certain releases here. But it was pushed. Oh, it was pushed out because of Spider-Man: No Way Home. And it was very odd that
Oh,
that
okay.
supplanted it because I know there's a big anime and cosplay community here, and the thing that really shocked me the most is that yes, we got this prequel series or this prequel film, as well as the season one for back in 2020, and Mappa's doing the movie as well. But the thing is, too, that I actually don't know if this is going to do anything for anyone, essentially, because there's no plans for a season two at the moment. The manga, I think, is at volume 18. Did you read the? Are you caught up on the manga, Sam?
I'm caught up. I'm caught up. And
Okay.
with at least like where the manga is right now, you definitely have room for a third season, but because of the pace that the mangaka is going, he I'm trying to think. Because I would say like they probably have like a season, maybe a season and a half worth of material before they would get caught up. But the manga is going very very well, but I would say like in terms of how fast the anime would catch up, he would probably need a little bit more time to give us more material before they would try to make another season.
Exactly, and that's kind of my point about how it does feel like the hype that was going around with Demon Slayer, and then they extended into Mugen Train, and then into the second season of the anime is kind of lost on the Jujutsu Kaisen example here because of that reason that we probably won't see a season two if we ever do see a season two for probably another maybe 4 to 5 years. Because generally the rule is that for every 24 episodes, you get 7 volumes of the manga, and then every 12 episodes you get 7 volumes of the manga, and then if the mangaka keeps progressing as they do, and then the high budget animation that they put in with Studio Mappa is supposed to be paced out in step by step in the same vein, then this looked to be a 3 to 4 year animation process. So looking forward to a second season too, but it kind of feels hollow to go see and enjoy the prequel film now, because it's kind of a saddening thing that we might not see a season two for probably a couple of years from now.
Yeah, but I feel as though so like you said, like this is going to be running into the Attack on Titan problem where we had to wait so long for the manga to essentially wrap up, and I think that's what made Demon Slayer so profitable is because they were able to essentially animate it right when the story was ending, so it's all self-contained, and you're able to go at a continual consistent pace with for the next couple years. But I would rather wait for more material from the manga rather than having filler and having to relive the Inuyasha and the Dragon Ball Z days.
Yeah, that's very true. Because what's coming up? Because again, I'm an anime only right now,
Mhm.
and I think what's coming up is the Shibuya incident arc, and a lot of people, a lot of manga readers are kind of hyped for that, and I think it's just going to wane off because if Jujutsu Kaisen finishes, and then it gives the proper due of actually knowing how the manga ends, and the anime can be more informed about the direction that characters are going or the
Mhm.
plot lines are going, then it's going to be a more wholesome or completed product. But it's like one of those things of like, oh yeah, it's always going to be a waiting game when it turns into it.
But as I said, like I'm excited for the film, and hopefully, like as I said, like they have enough information, or not enough information, enough stuff for another season. But if anything, maybe 2 more years we can wait. If I'm being hopeful, but onwards to the next anime news that we have an artist, script writer, now penning a new manga. The artist being Koichi Shimahoshi, who is known for works such as Prince of Tennis, Sisters of Wellbear, Hunter x Hunter, The Ultimate Otaku, and After School Dice Club. This artist is now starting a new manga series that is called Assassin's Labyrinth, or if you're a Japanese purist, Koroshia no Meikyu. And essentially, it's supposed to be an assassin's battle royale where the manga is supposed to be beginning when assassins are essentially locked in a place inside of the walls of the state, and then essentially a tragedy befalls them. So it seems like these assassins are called to go to this estate, and then there's a sort of whodunit that happens, And just the description, battle royale or an assassin battle royale is supposed to take place. That in itself just seems very attention grabby, and it seems to make its debut on February 19th. Now, Jay, what are your thoughts on this story?
For right now, it's really bare bones because we have the manga and their not filmography. What am I thinking about? Their works that they have published so far, and it
Yeah.
seems to be two artists that are like very unfamiliar with each other. Like the writer, script writer, like you said, has been writing episodes and also responsible for series composition for Hunter x Hunter. Like you said, again, I'm not as familiar with Hunter x Hunter as you are, but they're responsible for the first 60 episodes. I don't know where that would
Really?
put
Okay.
the series, but they've been working in the industry for a long enough time that this is like their first proper production under their own name. So I'm looking forward to it on the basis of a battle royale that's kind of in the vein of Danganronpa, the idea of high level professionals going at each other. Same thing that happened last year with High Rise Invasion, which was a survival battle royale kind of situation of like skilled assassins going after each other. So that's always fun. Again, if they are able to really delve into the different assassination techniques that exist throughout history and like kind of delve into like either the cultural aspect of it, because like hitmen know each other. That's always the world of assassination. That, oh yeah, this is the Black Hand. Oh, I know that guy. He killed this president back in '07. And oh yeah, you're the Tan Rabbit, and you're known for whatever. But it doesn't seem to be any leaning about comedy or romance yet. Just as seems to
Yeah.
be purely action based because the artist also did Captain Harlock, which is a
Mhm.
very old property to bring back in the modern age when they wrote it or drew it back in 2014. So I am looking for it on the basis of like, oh, let's see where this goes, but we'll probably come back report more about the story when it's more fleshed out.
Oh yeah, definitely. It like if anything, like if it's anything like what you said, if it's maybe like a Japanese version of like John Wick where it's their own universe and as you said, like the assassins know each other. Some of them would have bad blood. Like for instance, when I was thinking about John Wick, I was thinking about that scene when he was fighting Common. That was probably like my favorite fight throughout the entire franchise because they respected each other, but they still had to fight each other to complete their goals, and it was just such a satisfying fight. And I guess like I'm thinking too much from a bare bones summary, but if we can get anything like that, it would be so good. Now onwards to another manga release new type news. The official website for Shueisha's Grand Jump revealed that the mangakas Shinobu Katani and Takeshi Natsuhara will launch a new manga which is named Kama no Negi ni wa Doku ga Aru Kamo Kyo no Ningen Keizaku Kogi, which is Kamo's onion is poisoned, instructor Kamo's lecture on human economics. And this is going to have its debut on February 2nd. And this couple is known, well, not this couple, but which one is it? It is
Shinobu.
Kataini. Yeah, yeah. Shinobu Kataini is known for the long running season, not run season, but the long running series known as Liar Game that ran from 2005 to 2015. And that franchise had also inspired two live action films and two live action television shows within that time. I am trying to see, and it seems as though that Natsuhara had made another collaboration with Kuromaru on the Kurosagi manga series. So, just like I said, just another franchise that's it's known as the Black Swindler, and this news is just highlighting another duo mangaka making another franchise. And what are your thoughts on this? Are you familiar with their previous works, Jay?
We've talked about a little bit about Shinobu before. I don't know how
Hmm.
long ago it was, but I think it was your story, Sam, that you reported about the Drops of God, about
Oh yes,
the
yes.
works of a Indiana Jones type adventure with sommeliers. So Shinobu is actually the mangaka that wrote the manga called Sommelier. So it's another one of them, the food group. So when you mentioned this series that they're penning for the first time, like Onions, it was like home economics. It was like, oh, okay, it's probably in the same vein of exploring these very niche
Oh,
topics. So I was
it's
looking,
human economics. It's human economics.
yeah, human economics, yeah,
Yeah.
poisoning the onions. So yeah, it's very interesting to see that taking a niche approach to something that's not really talked about or really been animated or even has decent mangas about it. But the thing that really caught me about this is that Shinobu is also responsible for Liar Game, which you just mentioned. But the way that I knew Liar Game is because they actually have a third TV adaptation, but it was done in Korea. So there's two live adaptations done by Japan. Same thing with the two movies that are matching those two series. But then also there's a Korean adaptation of it, which also became the inspiration behind Squid Game, because it's essentially the same premise of people that are in desperation. So it's kind of reverse, where Squid Game they're all fighting over a big heap amount of money, while
Hmm.
Liar's Game is that all the participants are given money and they have been tasked with stealing, cheating, lying to get all the other participants to give over their money. Yeah, essentially, yeah. So it's still collect all the money possible. Same thing with the desperation between people fighting over money and doing despicable things to get all the money. I forgot if killing was allowed in Liar's Game, but the Korean version was only like 12 episodes, so it's based off of the Liar Game manga, which is only 19 volumes. So 2 seasons, 2 movies does seem about the correct runtime for it as well. And then it has all these vibes of Kaiji, the Ultimate Survivor. Same thing with Kakagurui, which all deals with like gambling in Japan, which is highly illegal. Same thing as with like having firearms. Uh, you know, Japan is very demilitarized. Same thing with having very high prosecution rates for gambling. But all that said, like I'm going to keep my eye on this story because it's really interesting to see that this mangaka is delving a little bit outside of what they're familiar with. So yeah, looking forward to it.
I've heard about Liar Game before. I haven't had the chance to watch it, but when the manga was going strong, it seemed like it was very, very popular. And hearing you talk about it, that it even had caused a Korean TV show to be generated because of it, and was even an influence on Squid Games. It makes me want to look into the franchise even more. And I don't know too much about. I'm glad that you kind of framed the type of work that Shinobu is known for, because when I looked at the title, like it made it seem like this Kamo was trying to teach people like how to assassinate like via like food or something along those lines. But maybe the title is just misleading. So I'm just very interested to see what more we are going to learn from this and from this mangaka duo. So with that, that is all that I have in regards to the anime news. And I had forgotten about it earlier, but I'm going to say it now. Audience, don't forget about the time codes in the description. We are now talking about the anime for the day, and the anime for today is none other than Brave 10. And I actually don't remember who was the one that chose this, Jay, because it's not done by Studio IG, and I don't remember picking it. Was this your pick or no?
Yeah, this was my pick, and it
Okay.
feels so, not my pick. Essentially, we do have similar tastes, Sam, but it's
Yeah.
like, why would we talk about something that we've talked about before? We've had an episode about basically the same genre with height. Wow, Hakuki.
Yes.
The Blooming of the Demon Flower, I believe, is the long light novel title of it. But yeah, this is my pick, and it's not part of IG production IG. So this
Mhm.
year we're doing the voice actor profile on UG. No, wait, UG. What's his last name?
It
Um,
starts with a K. Oh my goodness. I am failing right now.
yeah, we're friends. We'll just call him UG. But yeah, this is another studio spotlight on Studio TMS Entertainment. So you picked for following episode, I think in a couple of weeks, Zetman. We have this with the Brave 10, as well as later in the year, I believe, is Kami-sama Kiss, which is a
Mhm.
very renowned romantic comedy. So very interesting dynamic between the three shows that TMS Entertainment decided to release this year. So I picked this because I wanted to talk about, again, seeing how the genre of the samurai romance historic genre kind of has changed over the past 2 years. Because again, we talked about Haikuki in 2010, I believe, but this was a 2012 action historic done by Studio TMS, and TMS has been kind of on a roll recently. So I thought that was more apparent to our the premise of our show to look at the past and look at the present, because they're responsible for Rent a Girlfriend, Dr. Stone, and Megalobox. So they're doing some pretty heavy hitters in the past 3-4 years.
One other thing too, like they're also the ones that do all the Baki franchises. And first, I don't know why, but like Baki has boomed hard these last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the innovations and the animation
Hmm.
medium period, because now we can capture we the industry can capture fluid animation a little bit better now, because again, Megalobox has like some of the smoothest animation for boxing back from like the 80s, when Hajime no Ippo was like the only boxing anime around. But with
Yeah.
getting Kengan Astra, we actually did a pretty in-depth talk about finding animes back when we talked about Katana Gatari, which will come up actually again. I want to bring up that fact a little bit later on. But this
Okay.
is based off of Brave 10 is based off of a manga that premiered back in 2006. It has a total of 8 volumes. Again, keeping with that, 12 episodes basically equals 8 or 7 volumes of a manga. And the weird thing that happened after the original or initial manga came out is that it was actually not re-released, but it had a continued series called Spiral, but it was also remarketed or rebranded to shojo when it originally was seinen. So that's a very odd thing. Again, keeping in with that kind of romantic bend of seeing what kind of people are reading your manga and then readjusting to match that audience. Because originally it was seinen, for older boys, and then it was
Yeah.
rebranded and retargeted towards shojo, which is for younger female viewers. And then that follow-up manga series or continuation manga series only had 9 volumes. So again, has room for a second season if the anime gods wants to revisit the series. But right now, it's only 12 episodes available almost everywhere, which I was very surprised to learn about. It's available on Crunchyroll, 2B, which I think, Sam, we're going to have to do eventually a catalog di- um, digestion or dissection of 2B, because, man, they have a lot of anime on their service. Amazon Prime, and also Roku Channel, which I'm not familiar with Roku, but I hear some good things. But right now, the story centers on the adventures of the Sanada 10, which were basically a group of ninjas that were assisting the warlord Sanada Yujimaru back in the Sengoku period. And not delving into the histrionics or boring history of Japan, but usually what animes generally like to focus on is 3 time periods in Japan's history: Sengoku, Edo, and Meiji. So those are the time periods of basically the samurai films, essentially. So it's basically the time periods of when samurais were legal, when they weren't illegal, and like the post samurai world, and how the Japan kind of adapted to the change of culture of samurais no longer exist. But we've kind of talked about this before in Haiku Key, so again, I want to say like, oh, if you enjoy this episode, go listen to that episode, kind of thing. But the anime that kind of share the same space are like Roni Kenshin is probably the best example, or like the star child of the uh, genre. Then it's like Samurai 7, Basculus, Hakuki, just to bring that up again because it has several seasons, and then Yona of the Dawn is kind of the most recent example of it that I can think about.
Would you consider Gintama, even though it's a comedy? Like it's dealing with the Meiji period very, very loosely, but it's still
Yeah,
dealing
it's
with
like it has enough to say like it gives you a time and a place for it, but it's not really
yeah.
about that. It is very situational comedy, but yeah, Gintama is definitely in that same field or time period, timepiece. But yeah,
Mhm.
Sam, this is a very interesting property because I have mixed feelings about it, but you said you had stronger feelings about it. So can you share us your initial or your feelings?
I would say like because I've never heard of this, and it's good that we were able to look at this franchise because that was sort of part of this. The whole purpose of this podcast is to give anime that probably have never been heard before, or more lesser known anime, to give them their spotlight that they're due. And I'm glad that you had compared this to Hokoki. And I'm trying to remember, with Hokoki, that was shojo as well, right?
Yeah, it was off the bat shojo. Yeah.
Okay, so shojo. And I would say like I much prefer Brave 10 to Hokoki. I guess partially because it's not a root game, right? There's a linear story, and I guess because of that, like it's easier to follow the story, and the action is done very well. I mean, the scenes for a lot of the fight scenes were done very, very well. And watching this, it sort of reminded me that, I mean, as you said, like this is a historical piece. So if you knew the history of the Sonata clan and Ueda Castle, things of that nature, you would probably appreciate this work a lot more. Very much like how American the movie is for Americans. Like this is obviously for the Japanese people who know the specific characters and things like that. I appreciated the characterizations for the characters, mainly Yukimura Sanada, the Lord of the Castle, and how he portrays himself and how he engages his plans. He comes off as a very approachable person. However, it's funny because you can talk with him. It seems like you can sit down, you can have a beer with him, and then he flips the switch and he's like, "Yo, you know I'm a lord, right? You can't talk to me like that." That sort of thing. And it's very, very cool to see characters written that way, where they're so comfortable in their position, like they know the weight of it, but they don't take themselves too seriously. I would say that so to go into my gripes, because there's a lot of this a lot of the show that I do like, but like one thing that really, really irks me, and it may just seem nitpicky, but it's to the point to where like I can't really enjoy the show, is the power system, really. And I know that I had talked about this once before. I much prefer harder power systems where the rules are clear and it seems as though everybody plays by the same rules. In this franchise, like it goes in with you not knowing the rules of the world in terms of magic and things of that nature, and that can be done very well. You can learn intuitively how the magic system works without being told. That could be done very, very well. But in this one, I have no barometer really with the main character, and how he uses his techniques, or like how so for instance, the main character, it seems like he has a an incantation that makes his sword glow, and he can uh, for lack of a better term, do stuff with it, I guess, like move it so fast that like he can block other projectiles, or can cut through trees through one slice. It's like, okay, does it just make it extra sharp? Does it increase his strength? Is there a drawback from him using these signs? We later on find out that he has a childhood friend, Anastasia. They basically grew up in the same town. They went to the same ninja school, and she has a different power set. She can control ice. And it's just like, wait a minute, they went to the same school. Why is it that they know different powers? Like it was sort of aggravating that way. And the only thing that I can compare it to is Fairy Tale. So like for Fairy Tale, the magic system is very loose, but it gives you enough explanation to where what you are allowed to expect, so that you know that when a person overcomes an obstacle, it's because they were able to power through their own limitations, not necessarily for the sake of this. I mean, it is for the sake of the story, but it makes it more believable that they overcame their own obstacles and they grew as a person, things like that. Like there was a scene where the main character, Saizo, where he's essentially entrapped by a wind wall, and somehow he's able to break through it because of his incantation on his sword. And it's just like, this is the same incantation that he did earlier, where he could block blades by spinning his blade so fast. It's just like, what exactly does that incantation do? I don't know what it does. It seems like it's just a catch-all thing. uh, that was my biggest gripe. And I would say, like, it culminated and it boiled over when the antagonist in the third episode showed up, where it was that redheaded character that acted like a woman. It was so flimsy. Like, he was the one that controlled the wind, but when you first run into him, he's like, "Ha ha ha! I tricked you. I'm actually a man. Give me all your money because I have a hostage." It's like, okay, he's a bandit. And then later on in the scene, his character completely flips, and he's like, "I can't wait to see what this other guy is going to do when I torture you right in front of him." Blah. And it's just like, where did this come from? This is a complete 180 within like the last 5 minutes. It was it was very jarring. But aside from that, trying to put my qualms aside, I would say, like, it was fairly enjoyable. The main two characters, Saizo and the priestess chick, their interaction with each other is very entertaining, even though Isanami, the priestess chick, can be a little annoying. It comes off as endearing when you realize that she has superhero syndrome because of what he did to her, and how she explained how he was the only one to help her in her time of need. And the I guess, like, with her being as clingy as she is sort of helping him to overcome his own um, emotional shortcomings, because he has a complex about not having a master, which is weird because, as you said, like, this time period, it's a time period of samurai where samurai want to have masters, meaning, they are employed, they want to have somebody they want to protect. If you're not employed, you're ronin, and that's marked badly on you, as though you aren't loyal enough to have a master, or you aren't loyal enough to protect your master, that sort of thing. And they don't really explain, like, why Saizo has that complex on why he doesn't want to have a master. It's implied that he's scared, but it does we're not shown why on whether or not he had failed to protect somebody that he cared for in the past, why he would be afraid of not being able to serve his master properly. But at least with Isanami's interaction with him, it seems as though her helping him overcome that complex, that seems to be written very, very well. But it still leaves me lacking. And I'm sorry, I was on my soapbox for a lot longer than I had anticipated. But Jay, what were your thoughts? Am I completely off base? Do I just need to shut up and enjoy the samurai and the fighting? What do?
Yeah, this is a total of 12 episodes, and we only review like the first three because that's considered non-spoiler and the setup to the story about what you can actually share with people to make sure that they give a good, you can give a good recommendation or not recommendation of the series. And with the three main leads for right now is like Saizo, like you said, is a ninja, and he has like somewhat of an abandonment issues, but the power system, as you said, is comes down to his use of, which again, like you have these badass Ronin characters or samurai characters. Like he has a very short Buster Blade kind of sword. It's kind of a broad, short, long sword. I actually don't even know what the name of that would be. It's not a bisaw like the Chinese would carry, but it's a very keyblade kind of s kind of guts shorter Buster sword kind of thing that he carries around.
Saizo is he is essentially the love child between Cloud and Sasuke.
Oh, Cloud. Yeah, yeah, it's Cloud sword essentially, but it's something that you can is actually functional as a weapon, not just over characteristically anime about
Yeah,
it.
just a huge beat stick or something.
Right, exactly. And like you said, there are, and it's always that supernatural elements that they always add into these historic
Mhm.
anime because they want to make it exciting for the Japanese audiences that, know the story, they know their own country's history. But what if there was magic kind of thing about it? And even with the priestess, who is Iznami, who is a Izumu or Izumo priestess, her temple is burnt down, or her shrine is burnt down in the
Mhm.
beginning, because this is, like you said, Sam, the Sengoku period of the Warring States. And the warlord, even there's a name drop of Tokugawa, who, if you know anything about Japanese history, eventually becomes the shogun. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So even with the band that we're in, bed with right now are essentially quote unquote the losers. So again, if you know anything about Japanese history, you're going into it like, oh, we're following a story of the losers. Then you kind of know where it's going to go, but it's again,
Yeah.
oh, but what if there were demons? What if there were magical powers? So the priestess basically has a power of decay, essentially, something like akin to
Mhm.
something like Shigaraki from My Hero Academia has. And that's why uh, Yukimura, the warlord, really accepts her into his plan because originally he rejects her, which is again kind of again leading into what you said, that interesting dynamic of warlords kind of have to play 5D chess even if they're going to advance eventually. But he has a very cool moment in episode 1. He drops the name of the series. He says like, I need 10 warriors, like the 10 fingers on my hand. It's like a very badass moment. He's talking to his second in command, as well as there's introduced to the other two fingers so far. Sasuke, I forgot his name, Sobotoro or
Yeah, yeah,
Sabu,
Sarutobi.
yeah,
Sarutobi.
Sarutobi
Mhm.
Sasuke, which is another quote unquote Naruto name. But he also has like these owls that he controls, and he can like use some kind of wind jutsu that launches paralyzing plants. So again, like the power system, like you said, Sam, is very loose, and the action is it's not too bloody. There's a lot of blood in the first episode and in the following two. Like there's even a very oddly oddly directed scene where a ninja dies on top of the priestess and her eyelids are filled with blood because of it. And I was
How
like
wa
kind of freaked.
that was so confusing because, like, we saw the blood splatter on her face, and then she
Mhm.
started to cry, and, like, I had to rewatch it again, and it's like, like, she's crying, but it's like, are her tears mixing with the blood, or is she crying blood? Is she now a Bond villain? What's going on here?
Yeah, there's like very inconsistent moments like that throughout the series that like leans a little
Mhm,
bit into horror because like even in the third episode, like you mentioned, like she gets kidnapped and tortured by this seemingly unknown, well, we probably don't know it, but it's probably a known
yeah,
historical figure. And then like they have a flip-flopping personality. But I think the thing that really sells the series is like the recklessness of Saizo, because again, if you're going into these Samurai 7 kind of stories, you always want a reckless hero to show up and like, oh, I don't really want to save people, but I guess I'll save people kind of
mhm,
thing. Same thing with the boss Yukimura saying like, oh, okay, so he's someone that you can root for, even though if you know he's going to lose in the future. Same thing with like the villains are kind of interesting enough. Like in the second episode, there's a snake villain or like a snake beast. I don't even know what you would call it, but very loose feel to each episode. They don't feel very strongly connected. Really, they do feel kind of like episodic, like disjointed from each other. So it's like, oh well, this is going to happen. 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 It's not the Tatami Galaxy approach to history where they're actually trying to educate both the Japanese and the foreign audiences to it. This is just more placating to like the cowboy western kind of aesthetic. Is like, oh, these guys were
mhm.
superheroes back in the day, even though how unrealistic that can be. There's no really.
So you're saying they're taking the Abraham Lincoln vampire hunter approach?
Oh yeah, I totally forgot that exists. But yeah, it's perfect. And it does feel like this is the kind of story that you would definitely feel like has a stage play to it or a radio
Yeah.
show. Feels like it does have like some vibe that it could be a second season. Like Hakuki had, I think, 3 seasons in total, a couple movies and video games. But Brave 10 really never went anywhere. And I think that's what really makes this the more interesting case is because I feel this is more enjoyable than Hakuki because Hakuki was a maiden game, or at least it was based off a maiden game, meaning that it was a dating simulation essentially. But this is a little bit more in the vibe of the other great samurai romance shows. But again, like, what does that really mean? Because it's placating to paint by number plot points and like, oh, I know how this is going to end. And Izumi or Iznami doesn't really make the greatest first impression as a heroine because she's running for her life and
Even as a priestess, right? She's all over Saizo, and she's acting as though like they're on their honeymoon. We have one of the other characters who thought that they were actually married, right? She's jumping into the bed with Saizo. She can't leave his. She doesn't want to leave his side. It's just like it's like I don't it's like I don't know how priestess act in Japan, but I don't think that this is it.
yeah, she doesn't file in any archetypes that I guess we're really
Yeah.
familiar with. Like she feels very pixie dream girl, which is something that wasn't really coined until probably late 2010. So it's like, where did this come from? It just feels like she's out of place, even with Hakuki again. I keep wanting to go back to that because that's the only thing that we know from the podcast that we can compare it
Yeah.
to. But with the main heroine of that series, like she was apprentice doctor to her family. She had a motivation of finding her missing family member. She had some kind of competency because she carried a blade with her. She had a smart enough time to know that she needed to dress as a man to
Mhm.
hide her identity to make sure she was safe traveling around the country. But then you come back to this that she's she has like very bright blue hair. She's running for her life. The first thing she does after surviving a assassination attempt on her is eat 5 bowls of ramen. So it's really hard to root for her, even from a, oh, I hope they get together. I hope she gets together with Saizo kind of thing, or I hope she succeeds
Mhm.
because her initial motivation is to get revenge for the people that burned down her shrine, and which doesn't feel very shrine maiden ish as a
Yeah, no.
motivation. It's not like, oh, I need, well, they destroyed our shrine and that means they're going to take over the land or something, and I need you to go support the people. That's not her motivation. She's like, oh, I need you to go kill these dudes, essentially. And it kind of rolls snowballs from there with her characterization. But I think what you said, the high points of the show is in his smartly choreographed fight scenes. The loose
Mhm.
power system isn't too bothersome if you're into it for the power fantasy element of it, because it's like, oh, cool guy doing cool things kind of things. But that's all you can really show up to Brave 10 for. So on the verdict of to resurrect or rebury it, and to say like, oh, I never want to talk about this again, or I'm definitely going to recommend this, I'm going to say that this needs to be reburied. But how about you, Sam?
I want to rebury it, but because you mentioned that it was brought back as a shoujo, correct? Or was that just the manga?
Oh, that was just the manga.
Oh, okay. Because if they had brought it back as a shoujo, I would like to look at it just to compare the two. Because I really like how you had compared this to Hokoki. And even though Hokoki's characters are written very well, this one is much more palatable. So I would like to see what the shoujo take on this would be. Um I wouldn't want to resurrect it just so that it could be turned into a shoujo, though. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other problems with it that need to be ironed over before it can be resurrected. But like as we said before, it's a lot more enjoyable. So, but I would still rebury it. I mean, as you said, if you like the fight scenes, they're done so beautiful. And the fight scene in episode 2 was probably my favorite because we had that one-on-one battle with the other ninja that looks like an actual ninja. And I would say we had gotten some exposition from him because we got a sense of how strong Saizo is supposed to be. So the fights are good, but everything else is lacking. And so, long story short, rebury.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was an easy decision to make because, I mean, there are a lot of things like you can say are the positives and negatives of it. And it does
Mhm.
lean into more of like, how willing are you to see something that we've seen probably 12 other times? And especially visiting after 10 years, like we have in the season, like Orient, which is kind of the same thing, but it's two, brothers going on the adventure instead. And then having special weapons or skills going against demons. So it's something that has been recycled time and time and again. It's like this was basically what was replaced by isekais essentially in the 2010s, because historical anime of this kind is just like rampant in the past, because the same thing with mecha and magical girls is like the romantic samurai stories is just all the same, because you want to see these historic characters in a new limelight. So, like again, what you said about the whole Abraham Lincoln vampire hunter, I think there was
Mhm.
another instance of that with a,
Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
yeah, that's it, and also Jonah Hex was a little bit of that back in the early 2000s as well. But yeah, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, yeah, is the other one. But yeah, it's just like it's same old paint by numbers. So it's a rebury from both of us, Sam. All right, cool. So what's up next on the docket?
So what we have next on the docket, da 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 da. Next episode, we will be reviewing the 2012 series Senki Zesho Symphogear. And this will be interesting because I have heard of Symphogear before. And I think you have mentioned it once before, Jay, where it's like magical girls using music to fight people. Or
Yeah, I'm sorry. When we were arranging the schedule for this year, I did not know, just by going by release date or by their 10-year anniversaries, that all of my picks were going to be lined up like this, because the past 2 years we've
it's
been
all
going
good.
back and forth to be a little bit fair, because I'm putting a lot of the news gathering on your shoulders. But yeah, this is one of my picks because of the big progression of the music genre in the past couple years. You can look at Carol on Tuesday, you can look at Listeners. We just had something that I didn't like. Oh, Tact OP Destiny. Right, yeah. So I wanted to look at a musical centric anime from 10 years ago and see how it held up. So, yeah.
Okay. Don't forget about Vivi as well.
Oh, yeah. Vivi was very music centric. Like, you can't really separate the show from its music and composition. But yeah, so we'll be coming back not next week, but the following week with the Crunchyroll Winners Awards. But yeah, for next week we'll be talking about Symphogear.
Yep, and that's all that we have for you today, good audience. Jay, what have you got to say?
All right, so we're going on with the movie trends for our closing quotes. This is from William Wallace from Bravehearts. You know, Brave. Let's see. Fight, and you may die. Run, and you will live at least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance? Just one chance to come back here as young men and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they will never take our freedom.